Hi, this is JC. I know somebody must be curious about this man's story, Junior, a story about how he met Bobby Daniels, Todd's father, years ago, and why he would hand him a check for $3,000. So I'm curious right along with the rest of you. So I decided to sit down and start writing, and see just what the reason was for that. So without further ado, this is chapter 18 of my book that I entitled Todd. Chapter 18, Todd. This is Junior speaking. I first saw your dad when Kathy was a baby, about a year old. Her mother died of pneumonia a couple of months early, and I was having a hell of a time getting over it. My wife, Tess, and I had used up all our savings, about 4,000 bucks, to open up a small hardware store, this store, and I was having a really bad time keeping it going. I missed deliveries sometimes, and I'd forget to order stock. I just couldn't seem to get it together after losing Tess. I had to hire a babysitter for Kathy most of the time, but sometimes I'd have to bring her here to the store with me. One day a fella came in and asked for his order. It was some trim for a room of cabinets he was installing in a house. I didn't have it. Well, I apologized for forgetting to order it. He said okay, but he had to have it today. So he went to Belton and he bought it from your dad. He bought it from Bobby. He was quiet for a while now, and he sipped his coffee. Todd knew it was hard for him to tell all this. You couldn't hire someone to help you? Asked Todd. No, I didn't have the money. And I didn't really know a lot about ordering and many other things. Tess had always done all that, and I did all the heavy stuff around the store. Anyhow, a couple more of my friends went to Belton too to buy whatever they needed. It really rankled me, but I knew it was my fault for not keeping up with stocking the product and turning in the orders and stuff. Then you went to Belton to see whoever was there? Asked Leslie. No, no. I was sitting here trying to convince myself to go ahead and fold it up, just feeling sorry for myself, I guess. And some guy came in with a big old smile on his face. That was aggravating just by itself. It was Bobby. I was behind the counter, and he just stopped and looked at me. He didn't say anything. He just looked at me. I wasn't very nice to him. I said, well, do you need something? He just kept smiling and looking at me. No, he said, but you do. Well, I lost it then. I said, well, what the hell do you want? Why did you come in here? He said, I just wanted to see what kind of man would just throw a good business away. I really lost it then. I sat down in a chair behind the counter and leaned over and bawled like a baby. Bobby just stood there and watched me. It seemed like an hour. I just couldn't stop. He still just watched and didn't say anything. After a while, I realized what was happening, and I guess I cried myself out. I stood up and took my handkerchief out and wiped my eyes and blew my nose. And Bobby waited through all this until I looked like I had it all done with. Then he came over the counter and stuck his hand out just like nothing had happened. I'm Bobby Daniels, he said. I own the hardware store in Belton. Well, I shook hands with him. I didn't know what to say, so I just didn't say anything. You all right now? He asked. I said I was, and I started to apologize for being so rude to him. Never mind that, he said. Let's look around and figure out what you need to get going again. You know, your friends are just going to keep coming to my store if they can't get what they need here. He started walking around the store, looking at the stock and figuring what was needed to have the basic supplies for a hardware store. I just sort of followed him around. He went into the back room and checked the stock there. In a while, he said he wanted to check the books. Well, I got the two ledgers and put them on the counter. He paged through them and he kept mumbling, oh, yeah, like that. Pretty soon he looked at me and he said, you don't know much about this business, do you? I had to admit I didn't. That Tess had done almost everything. And I told him about Tess dying. He said, yeah, he knew. Then he looked me in the eyes and he said, you know, she ain't coming back. And you got a daughter to take care of. I was stunned at his bluntness, and I guess he saw it. He asked if we could go into the office, and I said, okay. He sat right down in my chair behind the desk and took an order form from the desk drawer and began writing in it. What are you doing? I asked him. Making a list of what you need here to get going again, he said. I didn't know what to say, so I just stood there watching him. He finally told me to sit down, so I did. In a while, he stood up and told me to sit behind the desk. I did, and he placed the order form in front of me. He told me to call this into the wholesale warehouse in Denver that he had listed here, the one he uses, and tell him to put a rush on it. Tell him you're a friend of mine, he said. He had been here for about 2 hours now, and I hadn't said more than a dozen words all that time. I looked at him and told him I couldn't do this. I couldn't take money from someone I didn't even know, who didn't know me. Then he just put me in my place. He said, well, in the first place, I do know you, and I can do whatever I want to with my money. And in the second place, would you rather just give up and admit that you're a friggin' failure, not even smart enough to take care of your family, not willing to sacrifice a little pride to take care of your daughter? And in the third place, I'm tired of hearing about what a nice guy you are and how tough it's been losing your wife and how sorry those people are for having to come all the way to Belton to buy their supplies from me. Then he scribbled a 4-digit number on the order form margin and handed me a credit card and said, you give them this credit card number. It totals out to $2,840. They'll ask you for a security number. Give them that one I wrote on the margin there. So I did. Bobby went back out of the office and checked the cash register. He went outside to his car and got a bank bag of money, bills and rolls of change. He had a list of the totals that came to $160, and he put the bills in the register and broke the rolls of coin open and put the coins in also. The whole thing came to $3,000. After I'd called this order into the Denver wholesale warehouse, I went back into the store where Bobby was. He told me to just piddle around today and he'd come back tomorrow, be here when my order was delivered. We'd go over how to stock it and where to put certain things so they'd sell better. He said he'd teach me how to run a business. He did come back the next day, and he came back at least 2 days a week for 2 months. In those days, I learned how to run a business. Junior stopped talking now, and he sipped his coffee. It was cold by now, and he warmed it from the pot. Todd said, what a story. I wasn't aware of any of this. Dad never included me in the business. He didn't explain it was because he was so young. He didn't have to explain that. Now Larry spoke up. Maybe because you were so young, he said. What, 12 or 13 now? Then he said, we know all about you, young man. Not everyone in town, just Bobby's 5 poker buddies. Most of us have a story a lot like Junior's about your dad. He was quite a guy. Larry added, oh, but please don't tell me your girlfriend's only 11. I got a laugh from everyone. Todd asked Junior, how's business now? Not too good right now, Junior answered. Things have slowed down a bit. The housing construction business is down. The store's not big enough to afford much advertising. But we'll get by, won't we, baby? He added to Kathy, his daughter. You bet, Pop, we always do, she said with a smile. You know, there's a building contractor I know over in Belton. Maybe I can talk to him a little. Todd said, and I have an idea I want to run by you a little later. I won't say what it is because I haven't discussed it with Les or with my mom yet. Then Todd handed the $3,000 check back to Junior. Junior said, no, I want you to keep that. I should have paid it back a long time ago. I tried to several times, but Bobby always said no, not yet. But I can't take it now, not from his son. Todd said, that's not your choice, Junior. Remember what Dad said, it's my money and I'll do what I want to with it. He handed the check to Kathy and said, here, kiddo, give this to your daddy. He said, don't worry, Junior, I'll get it back with interest. Leslie thought to herself, this is a good time to leave, and she said, Todd, we should start back, don't you think? He agreed, and they said their goodbyes, and Todd said he'd be getting back to Junior soon about his idea. Todd and Leslie got into her car. They waved goodbye and headed for the barn. Headed for home, that is. Now, this is JC, and that's chapter 18 of my book entitled Todd. Thank you very much.